we're the flagship program in this state, right? And
a bullshit, a bullshit, a bullshit, a bullshit.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another edition of the Raw, deep in the heart of Longhorn sports, part of the Raw Prospect Podcast YouTube channel. My name is Michael Wein, high atop a beautiful, still sunlit Houston, Texas, Sunday, April 21st, the day after the Texas Longhorns Orange-White Spring Game, about 7:30 p.m. We've got a loaded show today. It's going to be a full recap and analysis of what was, I think, the most entertaining orange-white spring game that I've ever seen, being a Texas Longhorn fan. We'll get into that. And then at the end, if we have time, we'll get into some college basketball transfer portal stuff. But before we do all that, as it says there at the bottom of your screen, make sure you like and subscribe. Share this content with any of your Longhorn friends that maybe fell in love with Arch Manning at first sight yesterday. And enjoy the content. With that, let me welcome in my co-host, fellow Longhorn fan and enthusiast, a man that's probably a little disappointed right now, but nevertheless is still here. It's okay. That's why the NBA playoffs, those series are 7 games. You can lose and you're not out of it. But anywho,
I wish it was like that for the Cowboys.
anyways, please welcome Mr. Emmy Nixon. What's up?
Man, I'm doing good. It's been a good last couple of days. Been watching a lot of basketball, as you would expect. But the spring game, as you mentioned, wow, like this was one that turned heads for sure. We'll get into it, but yeah, if you're new, subscribe. This is the place for all of the Longhorn burnt orange Kool-Aid you could ever drink. Basically, we'll be getting into anything and everything: basketball, football, sometimes baseball. But yeah, let's get into this.
Like I just chugged that water. You can chug burnt orange Kool-Aid. Speaking of Longhorns, though, Scotty Scheffler won the Masters last Sunday, right around this time. He was putting on the green jacket last Sunday, and currently, with play actually suspended and will finish up tomorrow, he's winning the RBC Heritage at Harbor Town in Hilton Head, South Carolina. Of course, I've played multiple times by 5 strokes. He's 4 under on the day through 15 holes. He's 20 under for the tournament, and he leads Wyndham Clark by 5 strokes, and Wyndham Clark's already finished.
Wow.
The closest to Scotty, who hasn't finished their round, is Patrick Cantlay, tied with Wyndham Clark at 15 under, but he only has 1 hole left to play. So he would have to – it's basically impossible. It's going to be up to Scotty not fucking it up, and he will get, I think, what will be his, 4th or 5th win already?
Season?
Yeah, 4th or 5th win already this year. So he just continues to do very, very impressive things. He shot a 63 yesterday, and he's going to shoot probably a 66 in this final round. 69.
Yeah, I mean, first, second, first in his last 5 starts.
He's incredible. But anyways, I just thought I'd mention that since it's Longhorn related. Let's get into the spring game. Overall, just on first and second watch, I don't know how many times you watched it, but what were your overall impressions of the team as a whole yesterday?
Well, I don't want to undermine all the other players, of course, but it's I think good to start with the quarterbacks. I mean that's the most important position on offense for sure. And Quinn was only out there for a little while. It was hard to really gauge the different things that we've heard from practice about him improving different parts of his game. but he did complete some throws in tight windows. He didn't lead a touchdown drive though, which is what we would have wanted, obviously, with him only playing a series or two. But he looked solid. But the story of the game was, of course, Arch Manning. Arch Manning looked incredible. Um, Obviously, the first snap of his spring game, 80-yard touchdown. Just
Yep.
couldn't write it up any better. And then I gotta give some love to Trey Owens as well. Trey Owens looked really, really good. Early enrollee, like technically not even a freshman yet. Just straight from his high school season, stepping onto a college field in front of that crowd. Not the same as a regular season game, but he looked poised. He looked his accuracy was better than what I would have expected, and his pocket presence was noticeable as well. He moved well within the pocket.
My first overall reaction is this Longhorn football program has come such a long way from where it was back when Steve Sarkisian and the Longhorns held their first spring game in his tenure, where they barely had enough offensive linemen to hold a spring game, to have the ability to have two separate teams. And so, other than the defensive line, which we can discuss, and which I think they're going to address here in the coming week, this looks like to me the deepest, the most talented Texas team that they have fielded since winning the national championship 15 years ago. It seems to me like this team can go 2 to 3 deep at least at every single position outside of maybe the defensive line. And that speaks to what they're doing currently in the portal to bring in players that make impacts right away. And it speaks to the level of player that they are recruiting, the level of prospect that they are recruiting out of high school, and the consistency with which they've done it over the past 3 years, dating all the way back to the 2022 recruiting class, which started this whole thing when they were able to go get Kelvin Banks and DJ Campbell and Cam Williams and build that offensive line depth. They've built this team the right way, inside out. They have the quarterback room, which we'll dive a little deeper into here in a second. They're developing this talent, and I think this is just the start of a run where Texas might not make the semifinals every year. They might not win the SEC championship every year. They might not compete for national championships every year. But I think this is the start of a run, a long extended period of time, as long as Steve Sarkisian is the head coach, which he's going to be here at Texas, I presume, through the end of this contract that he has, unless something weird happens.
Yeah, I'd presume through the end of the decade even.
Yeah. Well, that's as far as his contract goes.
7 years. Yeah.
But regardless, I think, this is going to be the start of a run where Texas is just consistently good. You're not going to have any of those years, barring some injuries, that look like what it was 3 years ago when they went 5-7. You're not going to have any of that. I think it's going to be 9 or 10 wins consistently every year, or at least that's what I'm hoping. That's what it looks like. Because yesterday, that looked like a team that was fast, looked like a team that was deep, a team that was talented, and a team that has enough talent top to bottom to go toe-to-toe with any of the other top contenders. Now, all that being said, the story of yesterday, as it should be, was the quarterback position. And Arch Manning headlines that group with what he put on display yesterday. I thought, from the little that we have seen of Arch, right? We saw him a little bit last year in the spring game. We saw him get in a couple games later on in this season. He got in the Texas Tech game where we saw him lead a couple drives and complete a couple balls. But yesterday, he looked awesome. The pocket presence, the calmness in the pocket, going through his reads, which I thought was the most impressive part of all of it.
Yeah.
Looking like he knew what he was doing within the offense, no matter who was out there, spreading the ball around and just making accurate passes. And I thought the arm strength also stood out to me. He was throwing the ball from the numbers to the opposite hash mark. He was throwing pinpoint passes to Isaiah Bond in the end zone that sometimes weren't caught, but fantastic passes. Aside from the Hail Mary, aside from the Hail Mary at the very end of the game, a ball that was tipped up and picked off, he didn't, I think, really come close to really making any horrible throws the entire game. I thought it was really impressive. And I still don't think people anticipate what it's going to be like when he's actually the starting quarterback at Texas. But he was a top headline on ESPN.com yesterday for what he did in a scrimmage. It's just, you're not going to be able to contain this genie. Once it's out of the bag, the hype is going to be insane. Insane to the point where you just can't control it. Like, you still can't even control the people that are pushing the Arch is going to transfer narrative and have been pushing that ever since, he committed to Texas. So, I mean, any more thoughts on Arch? Like, I feel like he should get a decent amount of time here.
He deserves all the love, man. I mean, he looks like a Manning. I mean, he has a level of polish that you don't see from a quarterback that's at his stage in his career. He has not made a college start yet. He has, at this point, in his high school career, played at a very small high school playing against very small high schools within the state of Louisiana. I'm not sure how they name their divisions, but I remember it being one of the smaller divisions in their state. So for him to show this level of polish and this level of play, this level of precision, this early on is just extremely impressive, man. I'm so excited to see what he can do in the next couple of years. And you mentioned the arm strength. That's the thing that stood out to me. He has a rocket strapped to his right shoulder, man. Like, I didn't see the early years of Peyton, so I can't really speak to this, but from what I remember, I don't ever remember Peyton having the strongest arm in the world. He was always extremely accurate and would always beat defenses through his preparation and through his timing and all those types of things. But I think it's fair to say Arch has talent beyond, that level even. So if he can just continue this progression, we could see something special.
Yeah, and people that don't follow the Longhorn program as closely as maybe I do, or even you do, or other Longhorn fans that we know, the more casuals out there, or the people tuning in from 30,000 feet, maybe fans of other programs, will come away from yesterday. If you're an alien and you just landed on Earth and you watch that game, you would say that guy, number 16, is the starting quarterback for the Texas Longhorns. He's not. And that's why I think some things get taken out of context where people are going to start pushing there's a quarterback competition here narrative, which there really isn't. Quinn is the starting quarterback. But the reason that performance was so important is, number one, we know the Manning family is very patient. The whole plan all along was sit behind Quinn for 1, maybe even 2 years, develop in Sark's offense, learn the offense, get stronger, get better as a quarterback, become accustomed to the college game, maybe get in some games, develop, and then by year 3, that's when you step on to the field and start, similar to what Eli did at Ole Miss.
Right.
They had a plan going in, and that performance was good, number one, because now Sark and this coaching staff can go to Cooper Manning, whoever else, Peyton and Eli, and say, look at your son. Look at your nephew. Look how far he's come from just last year's spring game. Look how we're continuing to develop him. Look how good he looks. And that's good for quarterback recruiting. And number two, every Longhorn fan, every college football fan knows this. We know Quinn Ewers has missed multiple games in each of his first 2 seasons as a starter. And Arch Manning right now is the next man up. He's going to be the guy that instead of Malik Murphy is going to be called upon. And remember, this Texas football team last year does not win the Big 12 or might not have made the college football playoff without the efforts of Malik Murphy backing up Quinn Ewers last year. The same, I think, could be put on the shoulders of Arch Manning if those injury issues continue to surface for Quinn, which we hope they do not, but you just got to keep that in the back of your mind. So the reason it's important, yesterday's performance, is because the whole nation got to see it. The Mannings now can see, okay, yeah, this is going to work. Sark is developing him in the right way. He's kind of in the slow cooker, but in the long haul, it's going to pay off. And in case something were to happen to Quinn Ewers, I feel like Texas feels like, I think the fans now feel like, yeah, we can get out of a couple stadiums with Arch Manning. With that, of course. So, and we haven't even spoken about Trey Owens yet. And so we'll do that eventually, but I feel like that's really puts a cap on the Arch Manning stuff. We have the entire offseason now to kind of talk about Arch. And so I feel like that puts a cap on that part of the conversation. What other parts of the offense? It can be a position group. It can be specific players that you want to get into. Really impressed you, aside from the quarterback room?
Well, I'll put it this way. I just think I don't want to just say receivers or just say running back. So I'm just going to say the overall weaponry on offense that is available to this team is so impressive. Jonte Cook made multiple tough catches this game. Scored a touchdown, I think. Ryan Wingo, of course, got involved, scored a touchdown. Isaiah Bond, he dropped a touchdown that you mentioned earlier from Arch, but he was making plays, he was getting open. And then the running backs, CJ Baxter looked stronger for sure. Like he was running through tackles, he was being physical. Like this group of weapons looks really, really good. And I don't want to go as far to say that it's been upgraded because we know how good the top end talent was last year. but it's definitely deeper. There's no question about that.
Let's start with the running back room real fast. I thought both running backs looked good. I thought
Yeah.
CJ Baxter looked strong. He looked physical. He had a ball that he caught out on the flat from Arch Manning where he ran over Michael Taft to get a first down. He looks like a back that can be kind of your workhorse, a guy that's going to get tough yardage, wear down defenses, and can be good down in the red zone. Can catch the ball in the backfield, is a skilled back, a little bigger, and has a different style than Jaden Blue. I thought the injury issues early on last year kind of slowed him down. Hopefully he'll be able to stay healthy. I do think, though, that Jaden Blue looks like the more dynamic player overall. His speed, his breakaway speed, and his ability to kind of even look like a receiver out there at times where he caught the touchdown from Arch Manning. I think it was his second on the little option route, the crossing route.
Yeah.
To be a threat like that in the passing game and to be the guy that was, I think, first out on the field. Yeah, he was the first running back out with the ones yesterday. That's got to be telling. And it's, I think, telling to maybe not what we're going to see come September in the first game against Colorado State. Maybe CJ Baxter will still be the first back out there. But from all the reporting this spring, it's been Jaden Blue has been the more impressive guy in practice. And so I think that had a lot to do with what we saw yesterday, and he looks electric. I think that's more, as I said in one of the last week's episodes, I think that's more of a 1A, 1B battle, more so than it is a 1-2 battle. Regardless, I think both guys are going to get significant reps. Both guys will be used for different situations as both have different strengths. And that's a good thing to have. It's good to have a little variety in your running back room. Variety is the spice of life, as Mark Jackson likes to say. So, yeah.
He has a lot of sayings.
Yeah, he does. That's just one of them. That's one of many.
I
I
thought
think, though,
Savion Red was pretty good as well.
yeah, and go ahead.
Yeah, he had that big run down the right sideline. And I thought, and then the freshmen got in there. Both of the freshmen got in there as well. I thought they have room to grow for sure. I think the defensive line did a good job, and we'll get that later. But I think when they were in the game, they weren't as productive as maybe some would have hoped.
I thought the entire running back room looked good. Thought Trey Reisner looked good in the reps he got. I think there's a battle right now for that third running back spot. Who is it going to be? Is it going to be Trey Reisner, who got good game experience at the end of last year? Is it going to be one of the freshmen that steps up to the plate? Or is Savion Red going to be able to take on more of a heavy load after just being kind of like the goal line specialty wildcat back last year? I think that battle's interesting, and that will continue, into fall camp. But Trey Reisner definitely has kind of like a glide to his gait that is smooth. And I think he's easy to overlook because he's kind of sandwiched in between Baxter and Blue, who are viewed as the top guys, and the freshmen, who are the new shiny toys. Nobody's really talking about Trey Reisner. And then the reason Savion Red is interesting is because he's been a guy that I've been kind of thinking about going back to some of Sark's press availability last week, where he basically was asked about the running back position, and he mentioned all 5 other running backs, but not Savion Red. He's been a guy I've been kind of curious about. Like, is he going to stick around, or is he going to be one of those casualties to the portal? I think he still could be, but yesterday probably felt good for him to be able to make some plays in the spring game. We'll see what happens with that. But, Texas is going to have 2 more guys coming in this upcoming year's recruiting class. So one of the guys, Trey Wisner or Savion Red, is probably going to be the odd man out at the end of the day. But we'll see what happens. Just keep an eye on that, though. There have been a couple other Texas players not on the depth chart right now that have already kind of entered the portal. And we'll talk about that in a future episode. Likely our next one.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the receivers. Do you have any other thoughts on the running backs before we talk about the receivers more in depth?
No, I think that was it. I think the catching passes out of the backfield is a nice new element that I want to see more. I think that will definitely benefit Quinn a lot. Definitely when the play breaks down, he's not, having to like make something out of nothing. You can just dump it off to the back and let them go to work. But that's really it.
Yeah. As far as the receivers are concerned, here's what I think. I thought Jonte Cook looked really good. He recorded a couple strong grabs over the middle yesterday. I think he caught 4 or 5 balls. Didn't get into the end zone, but he showed toughness after the catch. And he just has those like glove-like, mitten-like hands. Just really solid. He's going to be a dangerous player for Texas.
Yeah. And the other, like, the thing we learned about him too is like he's a gamer, man. Like he was out there competing his ass off. Like he was out there talking trash. Like I love that type of energy, especially for a spring game where it's just a it's a scrimmage. I mean, that's what it is. And he was bringing it. And
he's a badass.
We had talked about him, like some of his like practice stuff, and I just think he's a gamer, man. I think he just, once he gets onto the game field, he steps it up.
He's wearing number 1, and he's wearing that number for a reason. Xavier Worthy wore that number. You don't just get to wear that number if you're some oddball in the receiving room.
Right.
He's going to be really good. He could be Texas' leading receiver fairly easily this year. I think as long as nothing happens in the summer or in fall camp, knock on wood, he's the guy out of anybody that I think I can most lock into one of the starting receiving roles. He's been waiting for his time. He's been working now, been on campus for a year and a half. I think he's going to be a very solid contributor to this receiving room. But we can't mention the wide receivers without mentioning one of the freshmen that we've been hearing about basically the entire spring, and everything that we were hearing about and that was being reported came to light yesterday for the public to see, and that's Ryan Wingo. Your overall thoughts on Wingo, who ended up getting into the end zone twice yesterday?
It confirmed everything we've been hearing. Just we when he got committed to Texas, we watched his huddle tape a little bit live on the pod, I think, and he just jumps out at you, man. Like he has a stature about him when he's in pads. Like he's just big and just fast as hell. Like you just can't guard him without matching his physicality. And there's not going to be many people that can do that. He's just, I don't like to throw the word freak around because I feel like it has a weird connotation, but I don't really know what else to say.
Yeah, he was working kind of with the second and third teams. Wasn't yet working with the ones yet. Damn, I said yet like 4 times in those 2 sentences. But that's really the first time I've seen him in person, aside from some grainy practice footage. He's impressive. He's everything that he's hyped up to be. Wearing number 5, 6'2", 215, just a specimen. That size speed combination is very, very dangerous. He's still going to need some, I think, refining as a wide receiver. The level of coaching that he got in Missouri is just not the level of coaching a guy like Jonte Cook got at DeSoto here in the state of Texas, or even a guy like Parker Livingstone or some of these other big-name receivers get at the high school level. So Chris Jackson is going to have to work with him, and this coaching staff is going to have to develop him into more of that refined wide receiver. But the good thing is you don't have to coach anything else. He's got everything. You have everything there. You have all the ingredients in one player that you could ever ask for. You got the size, you got the speed, you got the strength, the ability to make catches in traffic, the ability to go deep, the ability to track the ball, make adjustments, everything you could want. Ability to win one-on-one, separate. You just got to kind of refine the technique. Some of the route running is what they're going to have to work on. But look, he's 3 years away until he ever considers going to the NFL. And for a first spring game, for a first impression on Texas fans, I think Texas fans and a lot of the media came away saying, how are they going to possibly keep that guy off the field?
Yeah.
He's just too good as a football
He's just too
player.
damn good. Exactly. I mean, you mentioned it, the route running, like there's a lot of room to grow there for sure. But I mean, with his physical ability, he could take over games from running 2 routes in a route tree, slants and go routes.
Yeah.
Like he's just that good. And then maybe throw a curl flat in there every once in a while. I mean, he's just. I think he's got run after catch ability that we haven't seen at Texas for a while as well. Just just from the physical sense, like he's not gonna get tackled on first contact very often.
No, I thought I've heard a lot of comparisons already. Some probably pretty outlandish considering this guy hasn't even stepped on a real football field yet at the college level. But you can just kind of see with his tools, Andre Johnson, you could see maybe some DK Metcalf. I mean, throw out any big, strong, athletic wide receiver you want. And you can see a little bit of it in Ryan Wingo. But Chance Mott, who played quarterback at Texas and was a 5-star himself, was the quarterback right before Vince Young at Texas. And he kind of got pushed to the side when Vince came onto the scene. He played with Roy Williams at Texas, and he said, and he would know because he's played at this level and he's played the quarterback position and he's seen the best wide receiver talent that Texas has had and played with that wide receiver talent. He said he's the most gifted wide receiver recruit that Texas has signed since Roy Williams. And you can't really argue with that based on what we've seen so far. So
Demaryius Thomas was the name that my friend threw out there the other day that I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah. Some other receivers, though, that impressed me. I thought Isaiah Bond kind of struggled in the first half, but in the second half, he looks like a guy that will make significant contributions for Texas. Potentially can turn into like a day 1, probably day 2 draft pick. The thing that stands out about Isaiah Bond is he can take it 75, 80 at any moment. He's kind of got a Xavier Worthy quality about him. It's just a speed. Like on the go route that he scored the touchdown, he got even with Gavin Holmes and just left him in the dust. It was pretty impressive. And Arch just
As Steve
laid it out.
Smith would say, if we're
Yeah.
even, I'm leaving.
Yeah. That was the case with a lot of Texas wide receivers yesterday. And then I thought DeAndre Moore had a really nice day. He's a sophomore. He was in the 2023 recruiting class with Jonte Cook. I think he's going to get time in the slot. Whoever he splits that time with is yet to be seen. But like you think about all the speed that was on display yesterday, even a guy like Matthew Golden, who had some good moments.
Yeah.
Silas Bolden hasn't even arrived yet. So it's like, whoa. How are they gonna get all these guys the touches that
there's a lot of mouths to feed for sure.
Yeah.
And some of the big play, like quick strike ability was something that was missing for Texas for a lot of last year.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, say what you want about the defense on that 8-yard touchdown. Just seeing it happen and seeing the guy get open and them execute the deep play is a good sign for sure, because we need those explosive plays to come more frequently. Like how many times last year did we get a one play 80-yard strike from the offense? I don't know if that really happened.
Yeah, it didn't really at all. I think they go 6 deep at least at wide receiver this year. I think if I had to pick right now, I think Jonte Cook and Isaiah Bond are starters for sure. And I'd probably put DeAndre Moore in the slot based on what he showed yesterday. He's been in the program for a while, but right there is Matthew Golden. Right there is going to be Silas Bolden, and who knows, maybe he takes a spot when he gets to campus, in a couple weeks. And there's also Ryan Wingo. So, and that's just kind of the start of things. And then you have guys like Ryan Niblett, who's really fast and made a couple catches yesterday.
Yeah.
It's impressive. It is. I think the fact that nobody's really talking about the offensive line is kind of a good thing. Like we could easily sit here saying, whoa, offensive line, what was that? They kind of, I mean, guys made good plays like Colton Vasek. We'll talk about the defense here in a minute, but I thought the offensive line overall held up very well in pass protection. Thought all the quarterbacks were given adequate time to throw the ball. And I thought that was part of the reason why, those quarterbacks were able to look like they looked yesterday. Trevor Gooseby did stand out. He did have a illegal hands to the face penalty on one of the touchdowns that was called back. But other than that, I thought he looked very good at left tackle. He's right now the third tackle behind Cam Williams and Kelvin Banks. Kelvin Banks didn't really get a lot of time yesterday, and I mean, we know what he is.
Expected. Yeah.
Kind of like we know what Quinn is. We know what Kelvin Banks is, so we didn't really need it. But, I thought the offensive line overall looked good. I mean, Jake Majors, we know what that looks like. I think DJ Campbell on the goal line touchdown that CJ Baxter had, he was kind of the guy that got the push. He's a mauler in the run game. I think Texas will have a top 5 offensive line this coming year, kind of like what they had last year in a way, as long as everyone stays healthy. And I think they have the depth to stay within the top 10 or 15 offensive lines in college football if an injury were to occur. I think they're just
and
really
that's
deep.
saying a lot too. To me, it was, the negative plays that happened. It was, you never got the feeling that, oh, the offensive line was being incompetent. It was always just, no, the defensive line's just making plays. Like,
Yeah.
it didn't have the feel of like, oh, that guy got ragdolled, yada yada yada. Like, no, that just never really was the case.
Yeah. Good thing nobody got ragdoll.
Yeah.
Man. Okay. And the good thing is, like, they're going up against these edge rushers every day in practice. In the spring game, they're going to be going up against them in the fall. Like, these are about as talented of edge rushers as you're going to see against anyone else that you're going to play. I think it's good that the competition that's happening in these kind of scrimmages, in these practice settings, I can imagine, is just going to make the team all that much better and more prepared come SEC play. Because these younger guys are SEC athletes. The younger guys you're starting to see kind of bubble up to the surface and make impacts, along with some of the guys that are already starters. They're recruited to play in the SEC, and they're competing against SEC high-level caliber talent every single day. And so they'll be ready, I think, come this season to play against Michigan. They'll be ready to play against Georgia. Whether or not they win those games, who knows?
Yeah.
But we'll see. Okay. We can't – last note on the offense, we can't really stop talking about the offense without talking a little bit more about Trey Owens. We'll circle back around to the quarterbacks. Just your overall thoughts on the 4-star freshman out of Cypress Fair High School just outside of Houston. What'd you think?
Well, first of all, anytime you go out and get a recruit within the state of Texas, huge win. First, like we've talked about this, got to continue to win these battles within the state of Texas. That's going to be a big deal. I'm not super familiar with his game. I'm not going to lie, but 4-star, highly athletic, highly physically gifted and polished. It's a win-win.
Yeah, he looks, for a guy that right now is in the 3rd spot, right behind Arch Manning, right behind Quinn Ewers, a guy that's probably going to be elevated to the backup by next year, given that Quinn Ewers, we think, is going to the NFL after this year. He looked really good for what was his first action in a live scrimmage.
He was a pleasant surprise. I was not expecting the throws down the field to be that accurate.
He's got all the arm talent in the world. He's got the size. Can probably still get stronger. He's good. He looks good. Texas has a very deep quarterback room. And they're going to continue to have that under Steve Sarkisian. We know they have KJ Lacey already in this class. He's very talented. He could be a 5-star. And they might be going after another quarterback, which we'll talk about on an upcoming episode of the Raw Prospect podcast, or Deep in the Heart of Longhorn Sports. So, yeah, that's the offense. Impressions overall of the defense. What stands out to you about the defensive performance yesterday? Now, let's just say this. The spring game and spring games across the country are zero-sum games, meaning if your offense is going to look good, it probably means the defense doesn't look as good. Yeah. And vice versa. Like if your defense looks really good, well, your offense is not going to look as good because you're facing yourself. But from what you did take yesterday from the defense was what?
Well, I think for one, the defensive line didn't miss a beat. Like we mentioned it earlier with the offensive line conversation. The run defense was fantastic, like throughout the afternoon. And the pass rush, I think once they got their feet under them a little bit, I think it really got going late in the first quarter into the second and third quarters. Like things really got going. Colton
Bassett.
Kosick, yeah, Bassick, sorry. Um, he looked really, really good. I was super impressed by him. Man, I just think if you get the defensive line playing like that, you're second. Like it widens the margin of error, and that's just so freaking important. Um, I'll leave it at that. I'll let you get your piece in on the defensive line before we get to the secondary.
Well, first thing we'll say about the defense is a couple guys did not participate yesterday. I don't believe we saw Trey Moore, the transfer from UTSA. We didn't see Jade Barron, who was held out yesterday. And then we didn't see Vernon Broughton, who right now, in my mind, is the starter next to Alfred Collins. But he was at a wedding yesterday, which was weird. We could talk about that. You know, he decided to get married on the weekend of the spring game. That's interesting. David Binda had some interesting thoughts on that we won't get into right now. But I thought Sadir Mitchell looked pretty good at nose tackle next to Alfred Collins. He's part of that 2023 class. He's a Northeastern kid, very big. Kind of reminds me of Keandre Coburn a little bit, just the way that
I can see that
carries his weight. He's a guy that needs to step up sooner rather than later. Sark did say after the game, we just need more bodies on the defensive line. He wasn't, sounding the alarm bells like, oh no, we stink on the defensive line. We did see, Alfred Collins make a play really early on where he caught the tip pass and took it back for the first touchdown of the game. That's the athleticism that he has. I think he's going to be at least a very solid player for Texas, hopefully, because he has all the tools. I thought the transfer from Arizona, Savea, he looked good yesterday. Like he's going to aid in stopping the run and kind of being disruptive in the pass. I thought Jared Bledsoe had some good reps. They are looking at
an appearance.
They are looking at 2-3 potentially defensive line transfers that we'll get into on our next episode later this week. They might already be committed by then. Who knows? But I thought overall, nothing really to sound the alarm about other than Vernon Broughton, being at a wedding the weekend of the spring game when he's supposed to be playing in the spring game. But other than that, I think they'll address their needs in the portal. I trust Sark and this coaching staff to do so. And we can move on to talk about the edge. I thought the edge players were as advertised. I think Texas has a lot of firepower on the edge.
Yeah.
I didn't see Baron Sorrell. I think he was another guy that did not really participate all that much. But he's been in the system now for a long time. He doesn't really need the reps.
Tip passes were the theme of the day to me.
We saw Ethan Burke made an impact right away on that tip pass that Alfred Collins, caught and
took the house.
Back. Yep.
Earthquake touchdown.
As I mentioned, I think Ethan Burke could be close to a double-digit sack guy this upcoming year and put himself into some draft conversations. Colton Vasek, he's kind of the hidden gem in this Texas edge room. Like right now, he's behind Trey Moore. He's behind Colin Simmons. He's behind Ethan Burke. He's behind Barron Sorrell. But he was highly recruited. Texas was able to flip him from Oklahoma back to Texas. He's a Westlake kid, just like Ethan Burke.
Yep.
And he's got all the tools, the size, the length that you want out of your edge players. He looked really good. I think he had a sack, a couple of tackles for loss, was very disruptive. He was in the backfield.
Living in the backfield.
Yeah. He's good. What's plagued him so far in his career at Texas has been some injuries. But I think if he's healthy, you could see him push his way into some playing time. That's a prototype that you'd really like to see on the edge. I thought Colin Simmons showed up, especially later on in the game. Just his burst off the ball is really impressive. But overall, I think the edges had a very good day. They were going up against some good tackles. And look, they weren't allowed to hit the quarterback, obviously. But they got in the backfield a good amount. I thought they made their presence felt. What everyone's going to focus on, though, is the secondary, because Texas, that was the weak point of last year's team. And just on first glance yesterday, when you had Texas throwing these deep balls, 75, 80-yard touchdowns,
and you don't see a defender on the screen.
Yeah, going up and down the field. It's a little bit alarming, right?
Yeah.
Texas fans who are expecting this secondary to be improved, and to other fan bases out there, rival fan bases, you can probably guess who they are, who were on Twitter yesterday talking about, Texas's secondary. But that's like Oklahoma. Oklahoma, I think their defense led up 50 points yesterday. So whatever. It's a spring game. As I said, it's zero-sum game. Things are designed in ways that you might not think they are designed, and they want to show off certain things and this and that. And it's not always the ones out there. There were very limited reps for the ones yesterday. Here's what I'll say about the secondary. I thought Malik Muhammad had a very good day. He looks like
quietly, yes, very much so.
Yes. Jonte Cook had a catch from Quinn on the sideline against Malik Muhammad. That was just better offense. It was
just all over him.
Fantastic throw, great catch by Jonte Cook, but Malik Muhammad was right there. He was draped all over him. He's going to be, as I said, I think could be all SEC kind of material this year. I thought Gavin Holmes had a good day. He got burnt once, but he was competing. Thought he looked good in the run game. I think he looks good. Right now, the guy I'm singularly concerned about in the secondary, it's not any of the safeties. A lot of the later touchdowns, the one to Ryan Wingo down the sideline, the one later on in the game. Texas had a lot of freshmen on the field in the back end, and those freshmen kind of looked like freshmen. They had Xavier Filsaime. They had Wardell Mack out there. I think they had Kobe Black at one point. He got burnt on the Ryan Wingo touchdown. The one guy, though, I'm kind of a little bit concerned about is Terrence Brooks, because kind of got burnt quite a bit last year and got burnt again yesterday. He's a guy that I think is being counted on right now by Texas to kind of be the starting corner opposite Malik Muhammad. And I think he has all the tools. I think he's a really talented player, and he's shown flashes. He shows it in spurts, but it's just not become consistent enough yet. And it still looks like against some of these faster wide receivers, he's having a little bit of trouble. He's the one guy I'm a little bit concerned about. But I think overall, Texas secondary at the very least has more speed. It has more athleticism think even on the play where Ryan Wingo got free down the sideline, I mean, that was just really talented player going up against another really talented player, and one of the really talented players just beat him. I mean, that was just good by Brian Wingo. Look, I mean, it's hard not to be a little bit concerned until we actually see it on the field, right? Texas is still going to have to figure out who are their best five, who do they want to play, when. I thought Jalen Gilbo and Jelani McDonald made some good plays yesterday. Guys that we've heard a lot about in the spring. It's hard not to be a little bit concerned, but drawing too many conclusions from that yesterday is, I think, going a little bit too far.
Well, to me, there was a drastic difference between when they went with zone, cover 3, and all those types of things versus when they went man. To me, the zone defense that they were running, cover 3 sometimes, cover 3 was when it was how they got burnt on that first touchdown from Arch Manning, that 80-yard early in the game. But different, they were running levels concepts, finding the gaps within the zones. Like it was concerning, sure, but I think with the talent Texas has, they'd rather be running man-to-man anyway. And I think they were just trying to be a little bit experimental. I mean, that's what the spring game is for. You mentioned it. It's, I'd like to see them execute those types of coverages better, but at the end of the day, I don't think that's like that stuff they were running is their bread and butter. So
yeah, I think execution is a lot of it. I'm not sure it's so much talent anymore. I think it's more so executing. And they'll continue to work on that. Like, I think it does need to get better in the fall, tightening up some of the things from an execution standpoint. But like, these wide receivers are also very good. The quarterbacks are very good. And I think, the good thing is the past 2 scrimmages that they had in the preceding weekends before the spring game, we heard that it was the defense that kind of won the day and not the offense. And so now it was just kind of a day where the offense turned out to be, the thing that impressed people. We'll see. There are definitely some question marks still in the secondary, but they're deeper and they have more talent than they did last year. We'll just need to see how those pieces fit into place. Trying to think if there's anything else we should hit on before we wrap this thing up. Let me look through my back to the edge conversation. I thought Zena Umeozulu, the freshman edge, he showed up a little bit. I thought he looked really good. Yeah. He doesn't get the attention because he's in a class with Colin Simmons, but thought he made a good impression. Colton Vasek, if I had to give an MVP on defense, he might be it. He was really impressive.
Burke, I think,
Ethan Burke was also very good. Savea, the transfer from Arizona. I'm still trying to figure out how to pronounce his first name. We'll get there. But I think it's T-O-L-E. Savea is my best guess at it. He looks really good against the run. Do
you want to just call him T.O.?
T.O., whatever you want to call him.
Yeah. For short, maybe.
I just call him Mr. Savea. Gavin Holmes, I thought, was good in the open field making tackles. He did get burnt by Isaiah Bond on the 75-yard touchdown, as I mentioned, but not the only corner to get beat by Isaiah Bond in his life.
To me, corner, you're going to get beat once or twice. Yeah. The bigger thing to me with the corners is your mentality when you get beat. You got to have the mentality that, oh, that was just a fluke. I'm going to come right back at you and be like, do it again.
Yeah.
You know?
Kobe Black showed me something. I think he had an interception, but he also got burnt once against his fellow freshman. Not too worried about that. I thought it was more the freshman safeties that kind of struggled a little bit, but that's to be expected. There's talent there, and they have Andrew Makuba, they have Derek Williams, they have Michael Taff, guys that are more experienced that will be getting the bulk of the playing time there. So I'm not too worried about that. But overall, I mean, as I said at the beginning, like this is a team that just passed the eye test overall. They look like a team top to bottom that is going to be ranked, and deservingly so, based on what they did last year in the top 5-ish going into next year. And there's a reason why Vegas has them slotted to win 10.5 games as their over-under next year going into the SEC. So on our next episode of Dit Hole, we will, now that a lot of the most of the spring games are kind of wrapping up. We've seen a lot of the bigger programs already have their spring games. We're going to be doing a top 10 SEC power rankings for 2024. That'll be one of the segments on the next Dit Hole that we have this week. We don't know exactly when that's going to be yet, but it'll be sometime in the next 3 or 4 days. Probably not Thursday during the draft, though. Thursday is kind of a wash right now with the NBA playoffs and the NFL round 1 of the NFL draft. But we will have another draft episode, likely on Tuesday. That'll be a full mock draft. We will have another Dit Hole, and then we will have an NBA episode reacting to the first kind of portion of round 1 of the playoffs. But yeah, any parting shots?
Well, my only parting shot is that I had so many scenarios run through my head yesterday watching Arch Manning dice up that defense. 2025 national champions? Question mark? No. It's just like it's hard to not be insanely hopeful, I guess is a way to put it.
2026 first round pick.
Like before, I was cautiously optimistic. Now I'm just psycho, like optimistic. Like I'm just ready to take the reins off. Like I'm just fully dived into the waters.
That's how Texas fans get nowadays. It's fun when the program's good because even with like the secondary, like we've got first world problems that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
So the program's in a great spot right now. What's the content now going to look like kind of moving forward the rest of the spring into the summer until we get to the fall? As far from a Texas football standpoint, there will still be plenty of content. Recruiting will be a big part of that. Still for the next couple of weeks, we'll have some portal stuff. We'll still have some Texas football-centric segments. We'll have some SEC football and college football as a whole topics. But we'll kind of start to include more baseball, other stuff as well. So you'll see. It'll kind of change gradually as we go, but it won't be as much, obviously, like practice intel and this and that kind of thing.
Yeah, OTAs aren't until June, I think.
Yeah, so, something like that.
Bit of time till then. So.
So until then, enjoy your night, Sunday night. I know the NBA playoffs have started. And yeah, we'll be back on Tuesday for our final pre-NFL draft episode. A full round 1 mock draft that Emmy and I now have to go figure out the details for. So until then, hook 'em horns, drink all of the burnt orange Kool-Aid that you can now, go rewatch the spring game a couple times and continue to get drunk on burnt orange Kool-Aid, and we will see you next time. Peace.
Peace out.